Imagine waking tomorrow, thousands of miles from everything familiar. You open your eyes into a landscape that defies logic, a place that feels almost disconnected from the earth you know. Here, strange trees seem to bleed red sap, while ancient evolutionary lineages survive in isolation. It feels ancient. It feels untouched. You could almost believe you stepped onto another planet. But you haven't left Earth. You've simply reached one of its best-kept secrets. Welcome to Socotra. In the western Indian Ocean, near the Horn of Africa, lies an isolated archipelago. A fragment of land separated by ancient tectonic forces and shaped by immense geological time. For roughly 20 million years, Socotra has remained isolated from the Arabian mainland. Exposed to extreme heat, relentless monsoon winds, and profound isolation. And in that isolation, nature began to improvise. Socotra became a living laboratory of evolution. A harsh crucible where survival demanded extraordinary adaptation. Nearly a third of Socotra's plant species exist nowhere else on Earth. And 90% of its reptiles are found nowhere else. Yet somehow, life continues to thrive against the odds. This is one of Earth's most fragile and remarkable ecosystems. A World Heritage Site, extraordinary in biodiversity, yet still seen by relatively few. A place UNESCO itself has compared to the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean. Prepare to witness nature at its strangest and its most resilient. This is Stranger Nature, and this is where the impossible begins. This is the island that time forgot. To understand Socotra, we must first look at what grows from its barren soil. It's home to 825 recorded plant species. And remarkably, 37% of them exist nowhere else on Earth. As we climb the rugged slopes of the Hagir Mountains, the air grows cooler and mist begins to gather. And here, hidden within the mountain mist, we meet one of Socotra's most iconic trees. The dragon's blood tree, Dracaena cinnabari. Its strange umbrella-shaped crown isn't decoration. It is an elegant response to a harsh environment. In a dry land, that broad crown becomes a vast surface for capturing moisture from fog and humid air. Moisture gathers on the leaves, then travels downward through the crown, toward the ground beneath the tree. But beneath that pale bark lies the substance that gave this tree its legendary name. When the bark is damaged, a deep crimson resin emerges, resembling blood. For centuries, dragon's blood resin traveled far beyond Socotra, valued as a dye, a medicine, and a useful natural product. And some of these trees are extraordinarily old. Their lives measured not in decades, but in centuries. But as we leave the misty highlands and descend toward the hotter lowlands, another plant has learned to make the rock itself its home. This is the Socotran desert rose, a remarkable form of adenium shaped by life on this island. Its swollen trunk is built for scarcity, a thickened water-storing structure that helps it endure long, dry periods. Its roots force their way into narrow cracks in the limestone, anchoring the plant where soil is scarce. Even through prolonged drought, that swollen body gives the plant a remarkable reserve, allowing it to wait for better conditions. And yet, from this brutal-looking structure comes something unexpectedly delicate. When the surrounding landscape looks exhausted, its flowers bring a sudden burst of color to the stone. It is not beauty by accident. It is beauty built around survival. But as strange as Socotra's plants may be, the creatures moving among them are stranger still. Not far from the desert rose, another extraordinary plant stands against the drought. Socotranus, the remarkable cucumber tree. It looks almost surreal. A pale, swollen trunk crowned by a surprisingly modest canopy. And here's the strange part. This tree belongs to the same cucumber family as pumpkins, melons, and cucumbers. On Socotra, one branch of the cucumber family has taken on the architecture of a tree. It is another reminder of what long isolation can do: reshape an entire way of living. Its swollen trunk is a remarkable adaptation to life where water can be scarce and unpredictable. In the long dry season, every stored reserve matters. And as we descend toward the coast, the character of the landscape begins to change. The air carries another scent now, earthy, resinous, and ancient. This is frankincense country, home to Socotra's extraordinary Boswellia trees. The name is famous around the world, but Socotra holds a remarkable concentration of its own endemic frankincense. Researchers recognize 11 endemic Boswellia taxa across the Socotra Archipelago. For thousands of years, these aromatic resins moved through ancient trade networks far beyond the island. Their value helped connect this remote island to a much wider ancient world. But the island's botanical treasures are not all towering trees. Aloe perry, the Socotrine aloe, survives as a compact rosette among the rocks. Its medicinal value made Socotrine aloe a sought-after product, traded far beyond Socotra. From giant swollen trees to plants no bigger than a stone, every form reflects the pressure of this landscape. These plants have been shaped by millions of years of isolation and countless seasons of scarcity. Thorns, resin, thickened trunks, compact leaves. Different solutions to the same brutal problem, survival. But these strange plants do more than endure. They create shelter and food for life hidden below, a hidden kingdom of creatures just as extraordinary. On most continents, mammals dominate the landscape. But Socotra tells a different story. Large mammals are scarce here, while introduced livestock have become part of the modern landscape. Here, the creatures best adapted to these rocks are often cold-blooded. Meet the Socotra chameleon, Cameleo monicus. Its movements are deliberate, almost painfully slow, perfectly suited to a world where every motion costs energy. Against dusty branches and weathered limestone, its muted colors make the animal surprisingly difficult to spot. And this is where Socotra becomes extraordinary. roughly 90% of its reptile species are endemic. 34 reptile species, and most occur nowhere else on Earth. Some of these reptiles are built for a world of loose stone and shifting sand. Among the skinks, streamlined bodies can make movement through narrow ground cover remarkably efficient. Low to the ground, compact, and fast enough to disappear between rocks in seconds. And when the heat becomes too intense, the safest place may be just beneath the surface. But perhaps the strangest survivors here are the ones that barely move at all. What look like tiny stones are actually land snail shells. Welcome to the world of Socotra's land snails. "95% of the island's land snail species are found nowhere else on Earth. But on an island where rain can be scarce, simply staying alive means waiting out the dry season. They can enter estivation, a dormant state that helps conserve water during prolonged dryness. Some climb onto sheltered branches or rock faces, reducing their exposure to the hottest ground. There they wait, sealed against the dryness, until conditions become favorable again. But immobility does not make them invisible or safe. Above them, Socotra records 192 bird species, including species found nowhere else. And for a scavenging bird, even a dormant shell can become an opportunity. The Egyptian vulture is more than a scavenger. It is an opportunistic problem solver. It is one of the world's more resourceful scavengers, known for using simple tools to reach difficult food. But the vulture is only one piece of Socotra's avian puzzle. The island supports 192 bird species, from residents to regular migrants. Among them is the tiny Socotra sunbird, a small visitor to the flowers that sustain it. Every visit connects one species to another, flowers to birds, birds to the wider ecosystem. Yet life in Socotra skies comes with another challenge: the wind. For much of the year, powerful monsoon winds sweep across the island. When the wind becomes punishing, sheltered limestone caves offer a different world. Inside these caverns, the outside world suddenly feels very far away. Here, cool darkness replaces the blistering sun, and hidden water can persist beneath the stone. And when we leave the darkness, the island opens before us once again. From above, Socotra can look almost starved of water, a dry world surrounded by an endless sea. But that illusion disappears the moment the land reaches the sea. Here, the baked limestone drops sharply into the Arabian Sea. Red earth meets turquoise water, and the contrast is almost unreal. And the same monsoon winds that scour the land also help drive the ocean's seasonal upwelling. That seasonal upwelling brings cooler, nutrient-rich water toward the surface, supporting a sudden abundance of marine life around the island. But beneath those waves, the rules change again. The dry desert gives way to a hidden city of coral and fish. Welcome. To Socotra's deep blue oasis. Just a few feet beneath the breaking waves, the harshness of the desert begins to disappear. Here, Socotra drops into the rich and dynamic waters of the Arabian Sea. Seasonal currents and upwelling continually reshape this underwater environment. Cooler, nutrient-rich water rises into the coastal zone, feeding an extraordinary web of marine life. And from that productivity comes a living metropolis beneath the waves. More than 250 species of reef-building coral are recorded across Socotra. Some rise like delicate underwater forests. While others become massive living structures, growing year after year. Together, these reefs provide shelter and feeding grounds for hundreds of species of coastal fish. Unlike the quiet land above, the reef never truly stops moving. Color after color unfolds beneath the surface, a world almost completely transformed from the desert above. But beneath all that color, survival is still a contest. And if we look away from the open reef, into its darkest cracks, another world is waiting. Hundreds of species of crabs, shrimp, and lobsters occupy this hidden reef community. Some clean, some scavenge, others quietly recycle what the reef leaves behind. Their lives are tiny, but their work is woven into the balance of the reef. Every crevice offers shelter. Every patch of stone can become territory. And yet, above this restless miniature world, something much larger is approaching. A moment of quiet majesty as a giant sea turtle glides across the reef. Green turtles and other sea turtles use these waters as feeding and refuge habitat, part of a much larger ocean journey. For animals that cross entire oceans, these isolated shores can become one important stop in a much larger life story. But when the sun slips beneath Socotra, the reef changes again. As darkness settles over the reef, the daytime cast begins to disappear. After dark, many corals extend their delicate feeding tentacles into the current. Moray eels become more active, leaving their daytime shelters to hunt through the reef. Meanwhile, some parrotfish settle into their nighttime hiding places, wrapped in a remarkable mucus cocoon. The cocoon is a strange nighttime defense, helping reduce attacks from tiny blood-feeding parasites. And beyond the reef, enormous travelers move silently through the open sea. Around Socotra, productive waters can draw large marine animals into the wider ocean environment. Even this isolated island is connected to forces far beyond its shores. Then the stars begin to fade, and the first light returns. The Hagar Mountains appear again, rising above the morning haze like a familiar silhouette. And just offshore, something much smaller breaks the enormous emptiness. For generations, people have lived beside this wild sea, learning its rhythms and making a life from its waters. For all its alien beauty, Socotra is not empty. People have called these shores home for generations. For generations, Socotra communities have adapted their lives to an unforgiving landscape and to the sea around it. Tens of thousands of people now live across the Socotra Archipelago, concentrated around its main settlements. Adibo is the island's main urban center, where modern life meets an ancient landscape. The people of Socotra carry generations of knowledge about plants, animals, water, weather, and the land itself. Their relationship with the landscape is not simply about taking, but about living within its limits. And one of the island's greatest treasures cannot be seen at all: its language. Socotra is an endangered language, carried for generations through speech, poetry, and memory. For generations, people have adapted to the island's limits, even as those limits have begun to change. Today, those ecosystems face new pressure from development, grazing, invasive species, and a changing climate. The island is also exposed to powerful tropical cyclones, events that can transform the landscape in a matter of hours. For ancient dragon's blood trees, violent weather can turn centuries of growth into sudden loss. A broken branch still carries its crimson resin, a small reminder of what the tree has lost. And the deeper problem is time. These trees grow slowly, and young trees struggle to survive long enough to replace the old. One of the biggest obstacles is surprisingly familiar: livestock grazing, especially by goats. A seedling can appear after rain, only to be browsed before it has time to mature. When old trees disappear and too few young ones replace them, a forest can slowly become woodland, then open land. But the story is not only about what is disappearing. It is also about what people are trying to save. Local communities, scientists, and conservation programs are working together to protect what remains. In 2008, UNESCO placed the Socotra Archipelago on the World Heritage List for its outstanding biodiversity. A recognition that this island's biodiversity is not merely unusual, but globally significant. And protection begins at ground level, with a single living tree. Because conservation here is not about choosing people or nature. It is about finding a way for both to endure. Restoration is already happening. Small community nurseries are raising native trees for a landscape that needs new generations. Fences matter here, because a young tree needs years of protection before it can stand on its own. For a slow-growing tree, protection is measured in years, sometimes decades. Local conservation workers are part of that effort, walking the same rugged terrain they're trying to protect. Ecotourism can also create income, giving local communities a reason to keep these places alive. Visitors come for the strange beauty, while responsible tourism can help support the people who protect it. But the balance is delicate. The same attention that brings support can also bring pressure. Too much traffic, too much development could weaken the isolation that helped create this extraordinary biodiversity. Protecting Socotra, then, means protecting more than a landscape. It means protecting the conditions that allowed this life to evolve. And so, as we leave Socotra, we carry with us a simple reminder. Nature does not need to look familiar to be extraordinary. Its power is not in perfection, but in persistence. Socotra is not simply a strange island. It is a record of what life can become when given time, isolation, and pressure. Life here survives by making the most of almost everything, even a little moisture in a dry season. It endures dry seasons, powerful monsoon winds, and sudden extremes, and still finds a way forward. That is Socotra's real marvel. Not simply surviving, but continuing to create life in impossible-looking places. And perhaps that is what makes this island so unforgettable. If a place this extraordinary can exist on Earth, what else are we still failing to notice? What other secrets are still hiding just beyond the edge of our attention? Protect places like this while they still remain, because some losses cannot be reversed. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. This has been a glimpse into the island that time forgot. Stay curious. Keep exploring. Stranger nature.